Hey everybody, Leanna here. You'll notice Zelda is helping, but we're going to talk some gaming today, specifically my thoughts about Stellar Blade, having completed the game and done a little research on stated developer intent. Thanks, Zelda. We have chaos here, but I found the game more worthy of deep discussion than I expected after the first half. So I'm going to talk about that here. The fact that I can make a feminist defense of Stellar Blade, even though I am not sure this was the intent, but more on that in a bit once I do the help support this channel. If you like this content, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Cares session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. For you joining us via the YouTube algorithm, Leanna Cares is my peer counseling service that I offer. You can sign up, link in the description box below. So, Stellar Blade. It was sold off of the controversy on large girl butt. But it, by the way, I'm going to be showing you some gameplay. This is including the gameplay of Final Boss to prove I beat the game. I will try to minimize spoilers, but can't promise there will be none. So here we go. The first thing about Stellar Blade is it is very Nier Automata. Too much Nier Automata for me. Now they do go in slightly different directions with the idea of androids created to be impossibly beautiful. A lot of Asian media deals with robotics, cyborgs, and instrumentality. Stellar Blade does it in a slightly different way than Nier, but both examine the idea of consciousness and choice and what it means to be human. And obviously a major feminist question in modern day, current year, is what defines you? Is it the body or is it the mind and consciousness? And I think Nier makes a stronger statement about that than Stellar Blade does. Stellar Blade gives you a whole bunch of information and then leaves it up to you as to what to think about it. A lot of the reviews about the game say it's a mess. And I don't know if I agree. I think that many of the very open-ended, self-guided design choices were very deliberate. I think that much like From Software does with the you gotta work to figure out what the hell is going on, and a lot of it is not made clear to you. You have to fill in blanks and make your own meaning. I think it's deliberate. If you just blow through the main quest, it's gonna be, what the hell? It is very true that a lot of the story is in side missions, and a lot of it's kind of subtle and not subtle at the same time. Obviously, the naming conventions, the use of seraphim imagery, Adam, Eve, Lilith, Zion, Eidos, all very, very, very on the nose, right? And the bulk of the interesting stuff, the really thought-provoking stuff, happens in the back end, which is good, because once you hit a certain point in the combat, every boss is defeated essentially the same way. I would have preferred a bit more tactics in the gameplay and less kind of endurance sport difficulty. My biggest complaint in the whole fucking game is there's a don't mash feature for most of the game. Now it's I was not able to catch any of the larger special fish with the mash feature turned off. I don't know if that's deliberate. But I appreciate it as somebody who does have hand issues due to an autoimmune disease. I appreciated the accessibility with the no mash feature until the Raven fight near the very end, where it don't matter anymore. You have to mash. My thumb is still healing from the fucking mashing I had to do to beat that boss. That was holy shit. It wasn't even, I had my PlayStation controller. It wasn't even up and down mash, 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 mash. It was like, you know, you can't mash fast, so you wiggle back and forth. Like, this game is teaching you how to please the ladies, folks, intimately. But that was a joke, obviously. Maybe not. I don't know. There's so much Rorschach blot. You're reading shit in to this game, and I do think that some of this stuff is deliberate. I did find it cool that the different endings are not about good and bad. The endings are more about the ending that connects to the choices you made and what you saw in the storytelling isn't as messy as the world, and the reason it probably feels like a mess to a lot of reviewers is it sends mixed signals about what you're supposed to think about Adam, what you're supposed to think about Lily, what you're supposed to think about the world and who the good guys and the bad guys are. And it is very much left open to the player. And the way, I mean, I'll just tell you my experience that I found Adam, or as I kept saying on Twitch, Adam, very tough to take. The somewhat condescending tone he took with Eve, he's actively backseat gaming you. It for me was frustrating. Somebody else may not find it frustrating, and the game allows both interpretations to be correct. And depending on a choice you make, it gives you the ending that validated that very subjective impression. And so I think some people will play through the game for her ass and not get any of the very, very subversive messages about choice and personhood that you get right at the very end if you pick the more Eve makes autonomous choices and gets sick of people telling her what to do ending, which I thought was really clever because halfway through the game, like I said, I dropped the word feminist off the top, and there's a reason for that. Because Eve's got a big ass, and somebody on the dev team understood the clothing hell that comes into having a big ass and a small waist. I happen to have that problem, especially when I was younger. They have had to adapt jeans to go up high enough to actually fit properly. And I did not expect to play this game and later on go, I want her clothes. The game gives you a lot of options in terms of her outfits, and you can put her in the utterly ridiculous wetsuit, completely defies the laws of physics, looks like her ass is made out of flubber costumes. Or you can put her in the more, they're all sexy, but you get to pick your kind of sexy. And some of them aren't, they're cuter than they are sexy. And that's when I really gave them credit for actually putting the correct weight in the clothing. So if she's wearing a denim skirt, it does add weight all around. And if she's wearing a bulky shirt, it doesn't artificially cling to her curves. It looks the way these clothes would fit in real life. And it made me think, good for you, game, because a lot of the guys who play this game are probably sitting behind their keyboards and taking pot shots, calling women fat who look a lot like Eve. They're just dressed in normal human clothes, and the game is going, this is what a woman like this would look like in this sort of outfit, which, you know, of course, in winter months, you want stuff with a little more bulk. It's not world changing, but that's what I like. The fact that it does make you struggle with how young she looks at times. Again, there's a major thing right at the end where the youthfulness is, to me, somewhat explained in a way that continues the design philosophy of this game of there is no good, there is no bad, there just is. It's very much, here's a bunch of stuff, figure out what you think about it in the way the original Ubisoft Watch Dogs did as well. That game was very amoral in the way it was designed. And so it didn't help you along with whether you are supposed to think that Aiden's actions are good or bad. They just are. Stellar Blade, similarly, I mean, it does take some, I'll say, tweaks at the player's sensibilities. If you're looking to be morally challenged, it is there. Because on the one hand, it's going to make you feel for some impossibly beautiful female androids. You know, there's at least one character you'll probably care about in some way. Not that there's a ton there. Yeah, I ended up liking Lily. I ended up liking Eve being kind of a dunce in that she was innocent. And sure, I made a ton of fun out of it, but they're games. They're supposed to be fun, you know? And there was that thing of she's a machine in kind of baby's first Kojima game fashion. I think you're supposed to treat her as not human and not having feelings because definitely as the game goes on, she's very clearly at least having simulated emotions, and the player has to decide how real those emotions are. And, you know, as somebody who worked with a lot of beautiful women, because I worked with a lot of models, I see how very, very attractive women get treated like they're not human. And that's a failing of feminism, failing of culture in general, is once they're beautiful, they are this object. And that's wrong, because they're still people. And I think the argument of, well, they chose to look like that is wrong. Because in order for any single choice regarding how someone chooses to portray themselves to be valid, all choices that involve basic self-care, meaning don't be dirty and gross and smelly, right, are equally valid. So if somebody wants to dye their hair blue and have 2 inches of roots, well, that's their choice. If somebody wants to go super, super glam, that is also their choice. There are trade-offs, but giving this a right or wrong morality, because Stellar Blade doesn't have a right or wrong morality, it challenges this very, very well. Not exactly through narrative. It's more through the gameplay. It's that sweet spot in game design where you can't tell if it's story, you can't tell if it's gameplay. It's a little bit of both. And the lack of signposting, both in terms of what you're supposed to do and thematically, I think lends itself to this sort of analysis of women who look like Eve. No one looks exactly like Eve in real life. Her face is impossible. But, you know, if a woman looked like that in real life, that's the way she looks. She's a human. She's still a fucking human. End of story. And the game definitely does go into that very existential, what does it mean to be human? Is it being made of meat? Or is it having an intellect and sentience and feelings? Or at least the perception of feelings. It is very philosophical in this kind of sandboxy way, and that's what I think distinguishes the late game from Nier, because Nier had all those endings, and then the ending, and the very big point it makes at the very end about consciousness, Nier Automata. Whereas Stellar Blade is very, very hands-off about what's the right answer. It allows you to like Lily. It allows you to not like Lily. It allows you to like Adam. It allows you to utterly despise Adam like I did. And there were parts where I had made up my mind what I was going to do about Adam if I had the chance. And I figured it was probably the wrong answer based on who this game was for, you know? The whole presumed male audience thing. And I was wrong. I was wrong. The game let me hate that motherfucker. And I give them that. It's very much the experience you want to have. And then I wish games would not drop major details right at the very end, because I prefer to mull it over while I'm playing. But it's not a mistake. That's just a preference. But they do tweak. Like I said, there's definitely stuff that if you come in with a more feminist framing, you're going to be challenged. And I think a lot of people who might enjoy some of the analysis won't even attempt the game because of the way Eve looks. And that's a commentary on their own subjective judgments and dismissals. I like it. For people who come on the other side, say the more anti-feminist side, the more I like titties, I like booty, titties, booty, titty, booty, the game is subtly mocking them right down to the newspapers, the reports being about Raphael, a guy named Ralph, and a reporter named Quinn. And I actually stopped and went, wait, is that a Gamergate reference? And then more and more, if you really dig, the game does not force you to dig deep enough to find these messages. But there is a cautionary tale in there about men ultimately being at the mercy of the women they treat like meat. And this viewpoint of men who treat women in an objectified manner either expect women to treat them in an equally objectified manner, or expect women to see a humanity in them and behave with a benevolence to them that they did not show that woman. And that was really where Stellar Blade left me, is the ultimate helplessness in the position of buying a video game for jiggle physics, buying a game for a big ass. It is ultimately throwing yourself on the mercy of these beautiful women that you worship like angels and hoping they don't hate you, even though maybe deep down you think you deserve it if they did. And holy shit, I did not expect that when I went into this game. Now, again, this is the way I pieced together the various endings and the various experiences and the various choices I made. And I got this because I dared to inquire. I didn't reject outright things that were uncomfortable for me at first, or bothered me, or made me roll my eyes. I gave it a chance, and I was organically rewarded by the game for giving stuff that made a rough first impression a chance. And ultimately, I think that's the message I took away from the game, is you get out of the experience of being human, being alive, what you put in. The world reflects back to you what you're putting in it, and the assumptions you're making, and the God, the word's escaping me now. The assumptions, the prejudgments you bring into it. Stellar Blade is a game, much like Elden Ring, that you get out of it what you put into it. And you got to finish the game for it to all kind of make sense. And man, that second last fight is irritatingly tough. The last fight is a lot like the last fight in Elden Ring. But you just have to practice and learn the patterns and, counter the patterns. The fact that the one before that is physically exhausting, I personally wish they didn't do. But that's just because I have a physical disability. This is not a game for everyone. In fact, I don't know who this game is for. I think that the game ultimately is for people who are attracted to women, but also want to respect women and are really ambivalent about the internal conflicts that sometimes creates. What's sexy, what's sexually objectifying. I can't talk. What is, for the viewer versus what is dehumanizing the subject. And I do think that's pretty cool, especially in light of what's going on in South Korea right now with the 4B feminist movement and the backlash against that. And you can read a lot of that into the endings of the game, and sort of the idea of these symbols that, man, a Korean game using Adam and Eve and Seraphim, and it's syncretic, right? It's stories, it's symbols that have traveled around the world and kind of morphed into this. And some of it is beautiful, and some of it is monstrous. And sometimes as creators, we don't know which one it's going to be, because we're all very limited as humans to only one frame and one foresight. And there seems to be almost this yearning in Japanese media of that, not Japanese, Korean as well, of that sort of yin yang of the men and women are better when they work together, when there's a harmony, instead of so many things that are focusing on the differences and, you know, oppositional and one oppressing the other, instead of, like I said, on the one hand, okay, yes, do you look at it as the male gaze putting women in an inferior position, a subjugated position, or the pandering of products to men who like to look at a big ass and things like that, ultimately looking down, condescending to the presumed male player and leaving them feeling lower status as opposed to higher status, of leaving them feeling inferior to these, you know, beautiful, sexy, angelic like women, where there's this lowly kind of manslug kind of thing. It really depends on your frame, and it really depends on your glasses half empty, glasses half full. And what I like about Stellar Blade is that you can just play through it and, like, yeah, I gotta kill a bunch of stuff. She's got a big butt. She's hot. I feel a sense of accomplishment. I'm done. You can have that experience. You can also really think deeply about this game. I'm not quite sure how they'd make a sequel without ruining the quantum ending element. They could do a prequel. They could do another game in this world. Actually, I know, well, no. It's very much a binary at the end about state change of the world. But they could do a prequel. They could do another story happening at a similar time. But I really do hope they keep the themes. I hope they refine their design process. I don't mind the exploratory narrative. It's more things like make it easier to remind me of how to do a particular move. Just tighten everything up a little bit. Have a bit more go here next stuff. But I do think the exploration, rewarding people who fuck around and find out, I'm good with that. So maybe I've blown a few minds in this video of how deep dive I went in this game, but this is what I do. People don't watch my content to get an expected thing that they can agree with. People subscribe to my content and like my content because I come up with some real left field positions on things, because I'm just taking what's there instead of what I'm supposed to say. And I hope you liked it. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care sessions for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Both methods of supporting me help this content, help this channel grow, help the Discord, which you get access to if you support either of these things. And links are going out after the 5th. So now's a good time to become a patron or a coffee sponsor. Thanks for watching.